Dr. Gandhi, is Mr. Deng planning to join?
I just text Mr. Dang to remind him that we have a meeting today. I haven't heard back, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Morning, Cam.
Morning, buddy. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I will call this meeting of the March 16th, 2021 Arizona Board of Pharmacy Complaint Review Committee to order. Dr. Gandhi, can you take the roll?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll start with you, Ms. Walmsley.
Here.
Ms. Nair.
Here.
Mr. Minkus.
Here.
And Mr. Dang, I do not see him. I'll keep an eye out for him.
Next, we will have conflicts of interest. Do you want to collect those, Dr. Gandhi? Or am I the only
yes.
one then?
I did get yours already, your list. Mr. Minkus, any conflicts?
None.
Ms. Nair?
None.
For time, I'm going to take a little bit of liberty as the chair. I'm going to pull my conflicts of interest to the end of the meeting to see if Mr. Dang has the opportunity to join. So I will skip over those and then we can determine if he's able to join and what's the best way to proceed at that point, if that is acceptable to everyone.
Yes.
Fine with me.
All right. Moving on, we will start with the complaints. Complaint number 20-0481. This was an incorrectly dispensed prescription. Open it up to any discussion.
So to me, it looks like there's already been a lawsuit that has handled this. And what we're really looking at is just a misfill. So I was thinking CE for the pharmacists involved.
I'm fine with that. I also think it would be fine to go ahead and dismiss it because it seems like they've done all the corrective actions to try to get this up to speed and get it corrected. So either way, I'm fine with.
I would be in agreement with doing the continuing education. So it looks like we have two pharmacists documented here. So your recommendation is for CE for both of those?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Ms. Nair, what would you like to make a motion on it?
Sure, I would do 3 hours of continuing education in patient safety, maybe, or
Error prevention.
Error prevention. Thank you. Above what's required to be done within 90 days.
Is that non-disciplinary?
Non-disciplinary.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, complaint number 20-0533. A pharmacy is accused of shorting a controlled substance prescription. Board members, any discussion?
My thought was to dismiss. It was more of a customer service related issue than board related, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I have one question here. Dr. Gandhi, did the compliance officers do an inspection as part of this visit?
Ms. Walter, we did an inspection recently of this pharmacy. We didn't do it as part of the investigation, but Elizabeth and I did go last week, I believe it was, and did a full inspection. And we did audit this drug and it came out just about spot on.
Okay. I am comfortable with a recommendation of dismiss then. Would somebody care to make a motion?
Motion to dismiss.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Complaint number 20-0474. Original complaint concerned a pharmacy not answering the phone. In subsequent emails, the complainant represented a compounded N-acid that was returned to the pharmacy due to foreign objects in the compound, and an employee was not wearing her mask properly. Board members discussion?
I was thinking a letter of concern. I'm a little torn because I do think a lot of this was a customer service issue, but not wearing their mask properly. I was going back and forth between dismiss and letter of concern.
My concern with this one was the inaccuracy of the compounding record here. And it seems like that's potentially what resulted in the instability of the compound. So they compounded the prescription with mint flavored antacid versus cherry flavored, and did hand documentation versus it looks like really doing a full research on a new compounding record. Not 100% sure if that resulted in the particles that came out of the compound, but the inaccuracy of the records was more so what concerned me. The wearing the masks, in my opinion, is really outside of our jurisdiction. So, and the rest of it seems to be a little bit customer service. So I would be comfortable in doing a letter of concern to the pharmacy for record keeping here. Mr. Minkus, any additional thoughts here?
No, my initial thought was to dismiss it. I mean, I think they took care of it. And the other part of it, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a customer service issue. But if you want to send a letter of concern, I think that's fine, but I'm not, that would be as far as I would go with this.
Okay. Ms. Nair, additional thoughts here?
I think I would be supportive of a letter of concern.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Letter of concern to the pharmacist involved for record keeping.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, is that pharmacist or the permit or the pharmacy, the permit holder?
Pharmacist.
Pharmacist?
I'm comfortable with that. Yes.
Okay.
Moving on to 4F, 21-0015. A pharmacy technician filled her own son's prescription for a rescue inhaler and then provided it to a patient she believed was in respiratory distress. Board members discussion?
I think that we probably need a conference on this. I would be interested to get a little more context, maybe. I think it's very concerning.
I agree with Kristen. I think that although she thought she was trying to help somebody, in reading through this, I'm not sure that she got she should have got some help from somebody else, and it was outside her scope. So I think a conference is proper in this case.
Only concern that I have, and I agree with you, this is an extremely concerning case to me. She verified the prescription herself. There was multiple healthcare professionals that were available at her disposal, and she chose to kind of go around that whole entire process. My concern in doing a conference is that we have requested a statement from this individual, and she hasn't even responded to us. So if we have a conference in 2 months, and then we're not able, she doesn't show up or doesn't respond, we're that much further along in the process. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that is something that is missing here in my opinion. So I don't know if that changes our thoughts on how we'd like to proceed with it.
Hi, Lori, this is Kevin. Sorry, I joined
Kevin.
late.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you,
I
Kevin.
joined late. Thank you.
In setting the conference, you could also ask staff to include the subpoena to her to appear. Maybe that would motivate her to show up.
I like that idea.
Dr. Gandhi, have we issued a subpoena already for a response?
We typically have worked it into our workflow to issue a subpoena. for responses. I'm not sure if we did for this particular case. I can look for our records.
Would a hearing be appropriate or possible? Is that skipping too many steps?
I think it's skipping too many steps.
I don't think we have enough evidence to justify a formal hearing at this time.
Okay. Then I'm good with the recommendation of a conference with a subpoena to appear. I think that's a good compromise.
Is that going to be your motion?
Sure.
I'll
My motion is a complaint for the technician involved to include a subpoena for appearance.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
For the record, Mr. Dang has joined the meeting. Thank you for your attendance today, Mr. Dang.
Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Let's jump.
Actually, just since he just joined, can we make it clear that on that last agenda item that he abstained since he wasn't here for the full discussion?
Yes, that's why I didn't speak up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargraves. Let's jump back up to item 4D. Ms. Snare, can you take this one since I'm recused?
Sure. This is a licensee failed to report a charge within 10 working days. Even though I can see there was maybe some question of whether or not he was aware that he was arrested, I do think this, to be consistent, we would do a $250 failure to report. What are your
I agree.
thoughts? Yeah. Ruben, do you have any thoughts?
I'm okay with that. I think the fine is the proper thing to do.
I'll go ahead and make that my recommendation, a $250 fine, failure to report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we'll just go to 4E.
Yes, thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, no problem. It's 200490. And it's a duplicate prescription dispensed for 2 medications, 1 medication with incorrect instructions. My reading of this, well, my first question is for Mr. Waggoner. If the patient states this has happened repeatedly, just curious if you had any validity to that response.
No, I was not able to find any evidence of that.
Thank you. So does anybody have anything they would like to add? Any thoughts about this? My thought is maybe a letter of concern for filling duplicate medications for a patient. That would apply to the pharmacist. Anybody have any additional thoughts to that?
So Kristen, here's my thought. If we're gonna give the letter of concern, might as well ask the pharmacist to fulfill 3 credits of CE and do a duplicate therapy.
I'd be in favor of that. I think CE is always a good idea and always a positive move.
So you would want to do both, a letter of concern and CE, or just one?
No, just CE.
Just. Okay. You want to go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Dang?
Sure, I make a motion that pharmacist is gonna have to take 3 credits of CE on duplicate therapy.
Second.
And is this non-disciplinary within 90 days and in addition to what is regularly required?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ms. Galvin, I have a question about that. Do we need to add, or Mr. Hargraves, do we need to add, if not done, you know, what would happen if not done within that time frame?
If it's not completed, we can go to a formal hearing, or if not signed, go to formal hearing.
Okay, is that automatically part of our consent or our notice? Or is that something we need to say?
Typically, I believe that's part of what should be included in your motion.
Okay. Do we want to add that, Mr. Dang? Just as a point of clarification.
Yes, I agree with that too.
We need to vote on that again, or is that fine? Ms. Galvin?
That's fine. We're okay.
Well, actually, if they're issuing an order, if he doesn't comply, it would go right to hearing for non-compliance, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to.
With that thought in mind, we may want to go back to 4D. That was the civil penalty. And if he doesn't accept the consent, proceed to hearing.
Yes, I would add that to my motion. And was it Mr. Minkus that seconded? Thank you.
Ms. Galvin, are we okay to proceed?
Yes, I'm fine. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item 4G, complaint number 20-0521, the reporting of a controlled substance loss and failure to maintain effective diversion controls. Board members, discussion on this item?
I was going back and forth on a dismiss or letter of concern. I think there was confusion on who was supposed to submit the 106 form. And I don't see any improper action, like there was an intent to follow the rules. So I was leaning towards dismiss, to be honest.
I would agree with that. If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Mr. Dang, any further
I
comments?
agree. I agree with Kristen.
Sounds like, it looks like they've corrected their processes and have probably learned a sufficient amount as a result of this issue. So that's good with me. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to dismiss.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4I, complaint number 20-0534, an anonymous, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one, didn't I?
Yeah, H.
Yes, if you can take that one, please, Kristen.
A pharmacy is alleged to have not provided counseling on a prescription that required it, and counseling was requested by the patient/caregiver. I think it's really tough. I've been in this situation where you're trying to get to lunch and your lunch hour is getting eaten up by this last second customer. I see there's no excuse for not doing your job completely. So I'm a little torn on this one. I feel like it's more of a customer service issue than anything else.
I agree.
Well, then, in my opinion, this is a violation of the Oprah 90 law. So I think CE would be the appropriate resolution for this.
What law are you referring to, Kevin? Mr.
The
Dang?
Oprah 90, the counseling law.
Was the pharmacist
So,
aware, though, that there was a counsel needed? I think it was taken care of after lunch. So it wasn't missed.
But then again, if the patient has questions, patient expresses to the pharmacist that he or she needs additional coaching or education, that is the pharmacist's responsibility to fulfill that. Because this, in my mind, this is a safety issue. So that's why I think it's a non-disciplinary letter of concern along with CE on patient counseling.
I think this is a customer service issue, and I would not be in favor of doing that.
Yeah, I see it more as a customer service issue.
I agree. But then the thing is, it involves medications. Patient comes to the pharmacist and inquire about any potential questions that the patient may have about the medication. So it's not about just bringing up an item. This is about the medication, how to take it, what kind of side effects the medication has. So we can't just take it lightly.
I mean, she says right here, she states in the future, she will adhere to all the requirements that pertain to the patient counseling that she understands non-compliance can result in discipline. I think she kind of learned her lesson with this. I just think it should be dismissed. I think she learned her lesson already. I think putting more on her is the wrong thing to do.
So, Mr. Rubin, I agree, but like you said, it doesn't, to me, in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to have the pharmacist take additional CE. But just my thought.
Or the third rail.
That's why I said it's a non-disciplinary action with CE on drug interactions and patient counseling.
Ms. Hess, do you have anything you would like to weigh in? Maybe you can give us some more context.
Sorry, I was off mute, but you couldn't hear me. I don't know that there's really anything I have to add. They both stated that they were aware the patient was there. The technician was aware that they requested to be counseled and did not alert the pharmacist prior to going to lunch. The patient had to come into the store to complain before she received her counseling.
But she did receive the counseling.
Well, it's not documented. The pharmacist in charge stated in her written report that she called the patient and did it over the phone, but it was not documented.
Was the pharmacist aware that the patient was asking for a counsel?
It doesn't appear so from her written statement, but I don't want to put words in her mouth.
Maybe a letter of concern for the technician or CE for the technician, but if the pharmacist didn't know that there was a counseling needed, I don't know that they should be held responsible for that.
I'd agree with you.
Mr. Dang, what are your thoughts on that? Maybe 3 hours CE for the technician?
That's fine. Well, at least some sort of disciplinary action. My main concern is if we as a board take patient counseling lightly, we're setting up a bad precedent for future cases.
I couldn't agree more. I just think that part of this is customer service related. I definitely think counseling is of utmost importance. So I don't think disciplinary CE would be appropriate in this case, and I don't think that's something we've done before. I would say maybe 3 hours non-disciplinary CE for the technician.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that my recommendation. It's above what's required and in patient safety to be done within 90 days.
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 4I, complaint number 20-0534. An anonymous report was received that a pharmacist prescribed and dispensed a prescription for a controlled substance to a patient without authorization. Board members, discussion? I have a question for Ms. Richardson. Is she on the line?
I don't see her.
It doesn't look like it. Did we attempt to reach out to the prescriber? I didn't notice that in the record here. So it looks like there was some, in my reading of this case, it looks like there was some confusion by the pharmacist about what he was allowed to do, and perhaps some miscommunication amongst the pharmacy staff. Although this is a pretty serious allegation with us. Board members, additional discussion here?
It sounds
I agree with you, Ms. Wormsley. When it comes to controlled substances, I don't take excuses like pharmacists are confused or the staff are confused about what their tasks and responsibilities are when dealing with narcotics. So like maybe CEs, that would be my suggestion.
I was kind of leaning towards a conference on this one. I'd like to hear a little bit more from this individual and perhaps the organization around this. This organization has been in front of us recently for some pretty significant controlled substance losses and things like that. Just want to make sure that there's the appropriate processes and process in place with the organization and things like that. But the fact of the matter is this individual received a controlled substance without the patient's authorization. So I was kind of leaning towards a conference so that at least we could have a little bit more discussion around it as a board.
I agree. I think it'd be interesting to hear more about the culture and kind of the processes as well.
Madam Chair, no, it doesn't look like the physician was contacted.
Okay, thank you. I'm willing to make that my motion, a conference for the individuals listed, including the permit holder.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Chair, I think between now and the conference, we can reach out to the physician. Are there certain questions you'd like answered on this discussion?
Yes, there is a statement in here that I believe there was something in the document that stated that the office that he where's it at here? That he has like a blanket authorization or something to that effect, since this office is hard to get a hold of. I'm just curious if he did reach out for authorization. It says that sometimes he contacts the prescriber after the fact. I'd like to get an understanding if there's some sort of an agreement in place with the prescriber's office that maybe is not appropriate without a collaborative practice agreement.
Okay.
Thank you. Item number 4J, complaint number 20-0442. A pharmacy notified the board that a technician performed activities outside the scope of her license. Board members, discussion on this item?
Yeah, this one's tough. The tech admitted, did they ever admit to finally that they took it off of a previous fill? Weren't they claiming that they had authorization and they forgot?
I don't have, excuse me, I don't have any documentation that would support that from either the pharmacy or the technician.
Okay.
And regardless, I don't think that's appropriate for a technician within their scope to make that judgment call without a pharmacist.
Agreed. I don't know if a conference would help on this. And I also don't know what discipline options we would typically give in this situation, like a suspension.
How about probation? 6-month probation.
I think that might be a little significant, a little bit severe.
Because in my mind, I thought probation is less severe than suspension, right?
Yeah, it is.
So maybe 3 months of suspension, just enough to remind the tech that they need to be mindful of their roles and responsibilities and not crossing the line.
This is not the same store as the previous complaint, right?
No.
Okay.
Same organization, but different store.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I just want to make sure. Do you feel like a conference would be of any benefit?
I don't know what we would learn outside of what we already have here.
That's my thought.
It is a significant issue, in my opinion. I mean, in this case, it doesn't look like there was any harm to the patient, but there could have been if this is a liberty that the technician was making, and perhaps the pharmacist didn't even know that it was occurring. So it is concerning. Somebody have a motion that they'd like to make on this one?
I agree with you, Madam President. So I would make a motion to put the technician on a 3 months probation.
Typically, when you impose a probation, you attach terms to it. Like, continuing education or some kind of, supervision or something is attached to it. A probation without any terms to address the wrongdoing is futile, some might say.
Thank you, Ms. Galvin. So I know that our law book has a section that specifies the technician's roles and responsibilities, if I remember correctly. So if that's the case, can we have the technician sign an attestation that he or she read the law book, just that section of the law book?
Here's maybe an alternative to that, so that we can validate compliance with it. What about perhaps 3 hours of disciplinary CE for patient safety, as well as 3 hours disciplinary CE for pharmacy law? That way, I don't know if there's Arizona specific pharmacy law that she could learn about, but I'm sure there are definitely things around technician scope, et cetera, that perhaps would be appropriate in this particular case.
Perfect. I like that. Thank you.
So
That would be in conjunction with a suspension?
The motion was
probation, I thought.
the motion was probation.
Yes.
Probation. Sorry.
3 months of probation along with the CE that Madam Chair had just mentioned.
So is that offering a consent agreement? And if not accepted, proceed to hearing?
Yes.
So if I'm hearing correctly, the motion is a 3-month probation for the technician with 3 hours of continuing education, disciplinary continuing education for medication safety, 3 hours of continuing education for pharmacy law. If not signed, move to hearing.
Yes, that's right.
Do I have a second?
Is that in addition to their normal CE?
In addition to, yes.
Do I have a second for the motion?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Nair.
Okay. Why are we going to attach probation if we're just doing CE? I'm just trying to clarify in my mind.
Ms. Galvin stated that there was a need to add some sort of terms to the probation. And the CE would be the terms, in my opinion.
Just that she has to get those 6 done within the 3 months of the probation period.
And the probation is more significant than just an order for CE.
Okay.
I think it conveys the board's concern over what occurred. Do we know if this is the only time she's done this? I don't remember
How
reading.
would we?
She may have said in her response, and I just don't remember, this is the only time I did it. I messed up.
From what I was able to uncover, she didn't confess to it. And as far as the pharmacist or pharmacy involved knows, this was the only case that was documented.
Thank you.
Okay, I will second. Motion.
Any further discussion?
I don't know why we need probation and CEs. Can't we do one or the other? Do we need to do the probation part of it? Can't we just do the CE?
Mr. Minkus, that's kind of what my question was in a way. I think what we're trying to convey is that it wasn't our typical error, that this goes beyond, and it was of a higher caliber of error. So that's why I'm in favor of it. It just conveys that it's a more serious situation.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Dang, did you vote?
Yes, I did. I said
Okay, thank you. I couldn't hear you. All right, item 4K, complaint number 2020-11, a business located in Arizona selling prescription-only devices without a valid permit. Board members discussion?
I feel like we didn't get a straight answer to our questions, and a conference would be appropriate.
Agree.
I don't disagree here. Ms. Dr. Gandhi, do we know if they complied with our order, with our cease and desist order?
From my understanding, no, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
My other question was, if it's been turned over to the AG office, do we still have a hand in this, or is it no longer in our purview?
Even if we submit it to the AG's office, it's still within our oversight and jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. My recommendation is a conference.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, moving on. Item number 4L, complaint number 20-0507. A physician reported that a patient was hospitalized due to an overdose of Fioricet. The physician had no record of prescribing Fioricet for the patient and alleged that the pharmacy was using his name to fill prescriptions for Fioricet for the patient. Board members discussion.
I think we need a conference.
Conference, yes, I agree.
So we have an admission by the pharmacist through the attorney, correct?
I believe so.
Then we can.
Yes, that's correct.
My recommendation here was actually going to be to move to hearing. I'm concerned that a conference is not going to be fast enough with this particular case. This is an extremely large quantity of this drug that was being prescribed and dispensed without a physician's order, and there was patient harm that was done here. This case was probably the most concerning of all of them to me, just from the pharmacist action here.
I agree. If we could go straight to hearing, I'm for that. I thought we needed to do conference first.
What about a summary suspension? I forget, I looked it up and I can't remember. What is this drug?
It's a non-controlled substance, but it is controlled in some states. It's used for headaches. But the amount of Tylenol that was in this drug alone, from a patient safety standpoint, is very concerning to me, regardless of the abusive nature of the drug. I can't imagine, as a pharmacist, dispensing this quantity of a drug, even with a prescription for a physician, let alone filling it without a prescription for somebody.
Yeah.
Seth, what do you think about a summary suspension?
When did we find out about this? I'm just wondering if there's a timing issue.
December, it looks like.
Would it be the 2/4/21 date?
No, I think it's back to October, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it was reported to it was forwarded by the DEA to us.
In October?
Yes.
Yeah, then I'm a little less supportive of a summary suspension.
And I don't know if I would go all the way to a summary suspension anyway, but I think perhaps suspension and probation would be in order with this case. my only concern in doing a conference, I mean, I'd like to hear from the pharmacist. My concern in doing doing a conference is that I think it's just going to take too long.
Yeah.
So you want to offer him, I believe it's a him, a consent agreement for a period of suspension and then probation. And if he doesn't sign it, then go to formal hearing?
Board members' thoughts?
How soon would we be able to put a hearing together? Does that be the next board meeting?
Well, not this upcoming board meeting, probably the one following that.
Right.
One option, if your concern is the delay in them responding to a consent agreement, you could phrase the motion as proceed to hearing, but accept if signed a consent. So that way the hearing goes, the case could be brought back to the board with a signed consent agreement, or the case could be resolved with a signed consent agreement without the hearing going forward. So that way the hearing, they're on notice of the hearing will be held if they don't accept it. So you're not kind of wasting a month waiting for their response to the consent agreement.
That works.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good in between. What would be your suggestion, Mr. Hargreaves, in terms of a time to sign the consent agreement or move to hearing?
Well, if the goal is to get it resolved quickly, you could vote, recommend the board send the matter to hearing, but accept in lieu of the hearing a signed consent agreement, and just lay out the terms ahead of time. And that way, if they sign that consent, there's no hearing. The matter's resolved through that consent agreement.
Okay.
You'd have to set forth the terms ahead of time.
Madam President, if this information might help you in your deliberations, I was contacted by his attorney last week who was interested in submitting a consent agreement because the pharmacist is attempting to sell the pharmacy. And he can't do that with a complaint still being open.
Did he indicate what he would agree to as far as discipline?
No, he didn't offer any term.
Who is the attorney?
David Williams.
He was to have emailed me, but I have not received an email from him at this time, Ms. Galvin.
What would the committee recommend?
I would like to stick with my original thought on this one, to move to hearing and offer a consent agreement in the interim. If signed, we can vacate the hearing for 6 months probation and 6 months suspension and then probation. I think our typical term for probation is it 5 years?
And probation would have to have terms, right?
Correct.
He can't be PIC, he can't. So there are some generic stipulations on a probation that we can assign.
That would be acceptable in my.
See, another thought that I have is since the board meeting is next week, can we table this and have the full board discussion?
I agree with you.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay, so I make a motion to table this until next week for full board review.
Second.
I'll withdraw my motion. I have a motion and a second to table this matter to the full board meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? In the meantime, Ms. Galvin, Mr. Hargreaves, can you reach out to his attorney and see if we can't start to have the discussions around what a consent agreement might look like?
For what their proposal would be?
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can jump in a little bit, going back to 4K, complaint 2020-11.
Yes.
The recommendation was moved to a conference. I'd ask the committee to reconsider. I don't know if you've read some of the emails, colorful emails the individual had sent to myself, and, as well as I believe Elizabeth and so forth. He's not a very cooperative individual. So, and this matter has been going on since last June, that we've been trying to figure out how to make this person understand to get permitted and so forth, and get compliant with our rules and statutes. So again, it's just going to a conference is going to just further delay it. I was hoping to have you guys reconsider and maybe move it to hearing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair recommendation. And looking at the materials again here, Dr. Grande, it looks like we've already also referred this matter to the AG's office, and he's not been compliant with our cease and desist either. So it shows maybe an inability to regulate this individual. So I would be okay with that, and willing to make that my motion to send it to hearing.
Second.
So rescind the original conference recommendation, and then.
Yes, that would be me. I rescind my conference recommendation.
And the grounds or the basis for the referral is what?
For referring to hearing?
Yes.
He's been selling items that require a prescription without a license in Arizona. He's been issued a cease and desist and continues to sell those items without a prescription.
I'm not sure because he's not permitted. So as a result of the formal hearing, would be issue another cease and desist or pursue an injunction. Seth, I'm not sure what other remedies we could get as a result of a formal hearing, unless you want to assess him a civil penalty and a cease and desist. When he doesn't have a license, that limits our options. I do believe you have the authority to seek an injunction.
Cam, you've talked to him or no?
He doesn't want to have a verbal discussion, but if I can have you take a look at one of the emails I sent, and my page is 341, but I'm not sure what is it on your page, but we asked him to, in reviewing your case, to present to the board, who do you order the CPAP machines from? Do you only sell to patients directly? Do you bill any insurance? We asked him some questions, basic questions. And of course, his response was very colorful. And so then I indicated that, based on your non-cooperative behavior, we're going to forward your situation to the Attorney General's office. And of course, now we're hearing it as well. So he's not willing to cooperate with us.
Inability to regulate, is that another reason for?
He's not licensed though, so I think the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ms. Galvin, what are our options?
So you could go to formal hearing to assess a civil penalty and issue another cease and desist, but I don't know how productive that would be. Or you could recommend to the board that you instruct G's to seek an injunction in Superior Court. And you do have that authority under 32/1995.
We can also deem these products as branded adulterated, since we don't know where he's purchasing from an embargo, those items. And if he violates our embargo, that's another issue in itself, is it not, Ms. Galvin?
I think we would need proof that they're adulterated or misbranded, just because we don't know where they're from doesn't mean they're adulterated or misbranded, in my opinion.
Perhaps we should,
If you issued him a subpoena and he didn't comply with the subpoena, that would be another grounds if you subpoenaed him to a conference. But it's more problematic.
If you subpoena him, he has to show, right?
He doesn't have to, but he's in violation of subpoena.
Hmm.
It appears that he's probably not interested in complying with the subpoena. He probably
Then-
wouldn't comply.
but the matter has been referred to the AG's office for action.
Yeah, that's probably under a consumer protection
Correct.
inquiry or request versus a criminal inquiry. I'm not sure where it was sent to. And Steph and I would not necessarily be notified of that part of any investigation. An injunction that is sought by the board would be separate and apart from anything the Attorney General's office may do from a consumer protection standpoint.
What is the outcome of an injunction? I don't recall us ever using that in any of our cases. I don't know if that's something we should discuss in executive session or.
I don't recall for this board, but it is typically an order that you would get from the court enjoining or prohibiting a person, in this case, this gentleman, from selling products without a permit. And if he violates that court order, then he's subject to arrest and punishment by the court.
Okay.
Seth, do you have anything to add?
I was looking at the different options. We do have the option of the injunction to get a court order prohibiting it, which, as Ms. Galvin stated, if they violate that, they're in violation of a court order. The court can impose sanctions or whatever discipline they feel is appropriate. But you also have the authority, and this is what I was looking for. You can go to hearing, hold a hearing for them for basically practicing pharmacy without being properly permitted under 32-1927.03B. They could be subject to civil penalty not to exceed $1,000 for each violation. So it's, basically that could be for each violation. So every time that you have to demonstrate like multiple sales or offering for sale could be a separate violation, but you need to be able to establish those. So you could actually do both an injunction and a hearing. If you can impose a civil penalty for what the violations that have occurred to date, and then get a court if they're not going to comply with the cease and desist and stop engaging without a permit on their own, get a court to enforce, assess an order to prevent them, and then they've got other issues with the court if they're not compliant.
Board members' thoughts on Mr. Hargrave's recommendations or options?
Or you can send this to the full board and get more input and let them decide as an entire body
Actually, I think that's a good idea. Since we've never used the this type of action before, I actually like that as a suggestion, and it'll give everybody the opportunity to think about it in the meantime. I'm willing to make that my motion
Second,
to table for the full board.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Sorry about that,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Dr. Gandhi. Moving on to item 4M, complaint number 21-0016. A pharmacy did not submit a DEA 106 to the board within 10 days of discovery of a significant controlled substance loss. Board members discussion?
So this case is similar to the one that we had just discussed, 4G. So I'll make a motion to copy whatever motion that I don't remember, but the motion that we had for the 4G.
I believe we dismissed.
Yeah.
Dismiss.
Any further discussion? This was an item that we discussed, I guess, just for the public, I guess, at our last meeting about potentially do we need to make a modification to this rule, and the general understanding of the 106 process. In this case, the registrant sent a initial notice to the DEA and to the Board of Pharmacy, but then did not follow it up with a full 106 within 10 days. And I think we decided that we needed to have further discussion on this particular matter. So I think dismiss is appropriate with this case. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item number 4N, case 21-0031. The licensee failed to report charges within 10 working days. Board members, discussion?
This person has one DUI in their history. Is that correct? Sometimes I get confused when there's multiple charges, but it's just one DUI that I'm seeing, correct?
That's how I see it.
I would say failure to report, $250 fine.
Second.
That paid within 90 days, and if not accepted, go to hearing.
Thank you.
The one question I had here, though, is there was something, I believe, from the respondent's attorney that a copy of the ticket was reported within 10 days. Were we ever able to validate that? Or was there any proof of that?
The attorney was referring to the DPS notice that was sent. Apparently he got a copy of the ticket, but we did not. We just got the DPS notice.
Based on the fingerprint clearance card? Correct, yes. Okay, that was a little confusing to me. I'm good with the recommendation then for the $250 consent. Any further discussion? So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 4O, complaint number 20-0269, licensee failed to report charges within 10 working days. Board member discussion?
So I don't love the fact that there was drugs involved, medication involved, but it looks like the person had prescriptions for each of those. Are we still waiting pending charges for this person?
Looks like the charges are online now.
There are charges pending, yes.
Do you mean the case is still pending or charges are pending? I don't have access to my documents right now.
I just wrote, do we have information from the 3/4/21 hearing?
So we do know that he was charged.
Yes, she was charged,
Or
yes.
she, okay.
Yes.
I think this is the 200. I think that's the appropriate action here is the $250 consent for failure to report to paid within 90 days or move to hearing.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, item 4P, complaint number 20-0495. A DME supplier allegedly sold RX durable medical equipment products prior to obtaining a permit.
Conference for this particular case.
Any additional thoughts or comments here?
They did get a license, correct?
They do have a current permit with us now.
They do have a permit with us now. Okay.
And it looks like they ceased selling these products until they received that license. Is that correct?
Right.
That's correct. They received the cease and desist and then applied for the permit and resumed.
They did the right thing. I don't think, I would dismiss this.
If it helps at all, I'd like to add too that the Cigna that opened this complaint sent a letter stating that they have amicably resolved their issues with this company and they are not pursuing the complaint any longer.
Oh, okay.
Move to dismiss.
Then I'm okay with it.
Open the complaint?
Cigna.
Cigna filed the complaint, but we don't want to set a precedent, in my opinion, of if the complaint withdraws the complaint of us not proceeding with the complaint. You can make a decision to dismiss the complaint, but I would prefer that it be on a basis other than the complainant saying, oh, we've resolved this.
I do think that the respondent has made a good faith effort. I mean, they complied with the cease and desist. They've complied with getting a license. Yes, they did sell the products without a license, but they've looks like they've remedied the concerns here. So Mr. Minkus made a motion to dismiss. Mr. Dang, I think you were trying to say something, but I didn't catch it.
I agree with Mr. Minkus.
Okay. So you withdraw your initial motion then for a conference?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question real quick. I kind of already brought this up, but because my company is the one who made the complaint, would you like me to recuse? I didn't understand that part. I know they were mentioned in this, but I didn't know that they made the complaint.
Better be safe than sorry. We still have a quorum.
I will recuse and I will fill out a form.
Okay, thank you. Noting Ms. Snare's recusal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item 4Q, complaint number 20-0520. A licensee failed to timely comply with a non-disciplinary order for continuing education and a board-issued subpoena. Board members discussion? So I had a question for the staff on the timeline here. It looks like we provided an extension for this individual to complete her CE by 2/12, but she then did not submit the actual completion date by that time frame. Is that correct?
The extension was basically on the secondary complaint for failure to comply. She attempted to comply by providing additional CE, but then would have been short for renewal. So we let her know that, and she was going to complete additional CE. Be able to be on this agenda, she had to have it in by 2/12.
And she submitted it on what date?
She was timely in submitting the secondary response to her complaint, so that was correct. She actually did comply with that portion.
And it looks like she completed the CE on 2/10.
I have to look. Yes, correct. She was not timely with the CE for the non-disciplinary order, and she did not respond to the subpoena we issued her initially, but she did respond eventually and came into compliance.
Okay, that's helpful. Board members, any thoughts on this one?
Move to dismiss.
That's where I
Second.
was going to.
Yeah.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ms. Nair, can you take item 4R for me, please?
Yes, I can. This is a failure to disclose charges within 10 working days, failure to fully comply with a subpoena, failure to comply timely with an interim order for substance use evaluation, failure to update employment information with the board. So, my thought, well, first I wrote that we'd want visibility in their treatment, and our evaluator's opinion is that they would have a 3-month outpatient counseling. So does anyone have any thoughts about that? Do we think a conference is appropriate? Also, I saw in there somewhere that it said that we gave the person the option to speak before the full board. Is that something that we need to make sure happens, or is that, can we proceed without that?
I'm actually in favor of letting her come and speak if she wants. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's actually a good thing for us.
Mhm.
Ms. Ganavong, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so Mr. Dang, what are your thoughts about a conference?
I agree with conference.
Okay. I will make a motion and a recommendation for a conference.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
All right, that is the end of the complaints for discussions today. Our future meeting, full board meeting, will be held on March 24th and 25th. Thank you everyone for attending and for your participation today. I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Aye.